So my pot's been sitting for a couple days. I wrapped it in 3 plastic garbage bags and sprayed between each one with the mister, with a spray bottle. And it's really, it's in good shape. It hasn't dried out too much, but it's holding up. I wrapped with plastic this lip, and that's the first thing you want to do if you've had this sitting. Unwrap that plastic and just check out that lip. Is it still, can I press into it? Do I need to score and slip? If you can press into it really easily, you're going to be able to just keep on adding coils right on up, and you're going to be in business. But if you're not sure, just score and slip and attach your next coil. So another thing to consider at this point is you see all these nice, I call them nice, finger marks from smoothing with my hand and compressing and stretching this clay out. You can at this point begin to use a rib, like a harder rib of some sort, and just scrape these, get rid of these textures if you don't like them. Otherwise, leave them be and keep on going. The other thing you got to consider too, of course, is that these walls, this wall has thinned out substantially because I've stretched the clay, and clay's got to go somewhere, so if it goes out, it's got to thin. So it's thinned out these walls, and as I'm adding clay to the upward portion of this piece, I have to remember that these walls are now thinner, and I want to match the thickness somehow of this bottom portion. So I can do that one of 2 ways. One, I can roll smaller coils to match up, or I can pinch and just pinch by feel as I'm adding more and more coils and make sure that I'm pinching to this same dimension. So there are advantages and disadvantages to both of those methods, and you're going to find out what works best for you. If I keep on using bigger coils, I can add more clay more quickly, and that can be a nice thing, right? So that's what I tend to do, and then I tend to want to pinch that same thickness of coil that I have been utilizing, just pinch it until it meets this thickness, okay? So I've added another coil, and my template is pretty good, pretty dead on, I got to make sure I'm actually holding it flush against the work surface that I'm working on. It's easy to, if you're working on a bat, to accidentally tip it back, so make sure you've got it all lined up. And this is the widest circumference of this piece. This is where it's just starting to curve in. So at this point, I may think, wow, I got to roll a really long coil to make it all the way around. And the longer your coil is, the more prone it is to being weird and multi-dimensional. So if that's the case and you can't roll a really good long coil, just roll roll a normal size coil that doesn't quite make it, and then patch it with a second coil. Just like how I patched in the previous video that small portion that didn't quite make it across. It's as simple as that. But something to consider, I'm adding this coil on the inside, and this is going to have to start coming in because my template starts to come in at this point. It may not look like I should be bringing my piece in just yet, but I want to over anticipate this action to make sure that my pot doesn't start flaring out. So I want to make sure I stay at least vertical, and hopefully, I don't know if you can see this, but this is tilting toward the camera, toward your eyes. And I'm kind of pinching like this, so that when I'm pinching it on and smoothing this side on, it's starting to give this a curve, okay? It's curving it in. I want this clay to do the work for me. I want to initialize that contour so that I'm not playing around trying to get it to work later on. It's a lot easier if I can do it, you can see it better from this angle, I think. This is starting to curve in because I'm pressing and I'm kind of pulling, pressing down with my thumb, kind of pulling up with my fingers as I'm doing that, and getting this to contour in. At this point, it's going to, your coils are going to start to get a little bit smaller, smaller in circumference as they go around your pot, simply because the circumference of the pot is closing in. So the more I can facilitate that as I'm adding this coil, the easier my life is going to be. And right now, that sounds pretty good to me. I got a lot of things going on. I don't need a pot telling me what to do, right? So keep that in mind as you're working, as you know, keep up with your piece. See how this is starting to match. If it's going too far in, I can easily, you know, scoop it back out to match up. If I do end up going too far up, I can always paddle this whole thing down and paddle that contour as well. But this is going to make my life simpler. So I'm just smoothing that inside coil in, keeping a hand, of course, on the outside. And you can see it's at an angle to match the contour of my template. Don't let this get away from you. Make sure you got your hand up. Yep, right, because it's going to straighten up. You don't want that happening. You want to have control over where this form is going. So I'm noticing as I'm smoothing this clay in, this is really kind of hardened up on me, and it's not smoothing as well as I would like it to. So I'm just taking my finger, dipping it in a little bit of water, and I'm just going to go around this really carefully. I don't want to get I don't want to get water into the crack. I just want to kind of moisten up this whole edge. I'm just going to go around the edge, not dripping water inside, but just trying to hydrate this edge a little bit so that it will all integrate a little bit better. And then I'm going to come back to this back point back here and start smoothing it in after I've gone all the way around. On the outside smoothing in, I've got my hands cupped like this, and it's going to meet this way. It's going to meet this finger, which is at an angle because I want it to start heading inward, right? So always keep your hands at the same angle as you're smoothing these things in, all the way around the piece as you're turning it. You're just doing a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. Keep your hands at that same angle. You can hold your template up to make sure you're staying on track, that you've got that angle proper. Work your way around.